We are starting the session of masterclasses webinars for that is aimed to increase our quality and development speed for a front end. And our first lecture or webinar will be about JavaScript and its essentials part. We have selected such essentials parts like inheritance in JavaScript, how it works, how we can manage it, and how we can rely on it, how to understand it. What is scope in JavaScript and how it is different from PHP scope. What is context, how it created, how it can be changed. What is arguments? What are arguments? How they can be managed, and also we cover topic promises, because promises are widely used in our project. So promises are introduced in JavaScript standard, but not covered by all browsers. Anyway, we will talk about it a bit in the current session. And after that, we will have a question and answers session. Okay, let's begin. What about inheritance in JavaScript? JavaScript has specific inheritance of classes. Let's start to compare it with common, pretty known languages, PHP. So in PHP, we have to declare structure as class, to define the constructor method if we need. This constructor method will be invoked automatically when we create an instance of class. In constructor, we put some logic that have to be executed once the instance is initialized. And to get an instance, we have to execute new operator, and we will get an instance of constructor of class. In JavaScript, it's pretty similar, but a bit different. So we also have to create a constructor function in JavaScript that is version 5, in difference from ECMAScript 6. Next version does not have JavaScript. JavaScript does not have classes, but there is constructors and prototypes. So we need to define the constructor method with its logic, that it is the same as we did it in PHP. And after that, we can call, say, a new operator for the constructor method and pass the arguments to get an instance of that constructor. That's easy and pretty the same. Let's add the method, some custom method to the class. In PHP, it's also quite well known. We have to define a public method, get name, for example, and provide the logic for the method. This method will return the name. After that, we can invoke the method of instance get name and get the name which we put into constructor. But in JavaScript, it's a bit different. So there is no classes, but JavaScript has own way for inheritance. It's a prototype-oriented language. So we can define the prototype for the constructor. We have constructor foo, and we can define the prototype. Prototype is the object, and this object has two properties. Each of them is a reference to function that makes them methods. So first method constructor is a reference to our construction function, and second method is get name method, and logic is pretty the same. that we have in PHP. So it returns the name that is stored in constructor. And after that, we can use it pretty the same as in Java, in PHP. So we create an instance and invoke method getName, and it will return the name that we pass it to constructor. Okay, let's go further. What is prototype? Since JavaScript prototype-based programming language, all JavaScript objects inherit prototypes and properties and methods from their prototypes. That means if we create a new object over constructor, a new object, or over literal object, both instances, obj1 and obj2, will inherit properties from the same prototype. Properties and methods from the same prototype, which is defined in object period prototype. And if we create the instance of date, called new date, the instance of date will inherit properties and method from the date prototype. So date is constructor, and the constructor has object that represent that contains method and properties which will be shared between instances of the constructor. So the prototyped object is on the top of prototype chain. So this prototype is not final levels. It can be nested. So we all prototypes, for example, date prototype will inherit properties from object prototype. And not only date, all objects like that is created by standard constructors, date, array, regex, function, etc., will inherit all properties from base prototype, object prototype. But it's not okay. Let's skip it. So they will inherit properties, but it's not so. Okay. What is the difference, own property and prototype property? Let's inspect our code that we have. Once we create a new instance of foo, we have an object. This object have a name method and have getName. This object has a name property and getName method. Both of them return the value, the value JS. And we can inspect, we can check if the property is owned by instance or it is inherited from prototype. There is a method has own property, and we can check if property with name is own, and we get true because it is own property. And getName property is not own; it is inherited from prototype. So it is not directly assigned to instance foo. To understand it, we can use console.log function, very useful, to see how it is represented in the tree of object. So once we call console.log for foo instance, we see that the instance is created by constructor foo. It has own property, single property name with value JS, and it inherits proto to underscore and proto to underscore. It's a magic property which is referenced to prototype of constructor. So here we see that magic proto is referenced to prototype foo constructor. So it contains same constructor method and getName method. In its order, the prototype of foo has a magic proto property that is referenced to object prototype, and in this level we see that object prototype has own constructor method, has own property method, toString method, and etc. There are other useful methods. To see it plain, we see that foo has own property name on the right side of screen. Foo has own property name. Foo proto getName. Foo proto has own name. So all of these method or properties can be invoked on a level foo. We don't have to type manually proto magic method, magic property. It will be this method will be searched automatically. So at the beginning, JavaScript interpreter will look on a higher level. If it will not find, for example, get method on the full level, it will check its prototype, and it will find the get method on the prototype level. Let's go further. There is two ways to define a method for the instance. First, we have seen in previous examples. So we create a constructor, we create a prototype, and we put the method into the prototype. And once we create two instances of same constructor, we will get functionality on those two instances, and if we check there's method for one get method will be strictly the same as for two get method. So it means that both of them are referenced to the same object of function getName. I hope it's clear. And the other way would be to add the method inside of constructor. So we can create other constructor, other foo, and inside foo we can define the method getName. It will work pretty the same. So we can create two instances. Both of them will have getName method, and both of them will return the name that we have provided into constructor. But once we try to check if this instance there is a mistake on the slide. So once we check for one getName is equal foo2 getName, we will get false because each of these instances has own method getName. And we, despite that implementation of that method is absolutely the same, we will consume memory. We will consume a bigger amount of memory because we have created two methods. To reduce memory consumption, we can use prototype for this purpose. Let's look for another one example where it's often often developers do such mistakes. Let's create constructor, create prototype for the constructor, and add into prototype property items, which is not scalar, it's array. And add some method which is called add. This method will push items into our items collection. And after that, we can create two instances, bus1 and bus2, and invoke for each of them methods add with different values. And once we try to check what values has each of them, we see that they has all this same values, which might be not expected because we expect to add items separately. And we see that even both prototype items also have items, which is not correct. To solve this issue, we have to always remember that instances created with the same constructor share their prototypes. And if object is assigned to prototypes and manipulated over prototype, it will spoil other instances and even constructor for future instances. To solve this issue, we have to define items in the constructor. So we take it out from prototype and put it inside constructor. And now we see that each item, each instance with invoked add method has only own items. And initial bus prototype items still it have to be undefined actually, because in prototype we did not define items. It's also a mistake on the slide. Nevertheless, I think you understood the point. Let's extend our class with our custom class. So we have created class foo, and now we want to create a new class bar, which will inherit functionality from foo and extend it with new additional functionality. In constructor, now we will pass two arguments. It's name and age, and name we will reuse same functionality from the foo for argument name, and for the age we will provide a new functionality. So we add our method get age, and in constructor we will store initial age to get our argument. And to create new instance of bar will look pretty the same. So we pass two arguments, it's PHP and 23, and we will get an instance, and we can invoke both of methods of that instance. Okay, how it will look on JavaScript? On JavaScript, it will look a bit complicated. Not so much, but a bit. So we as well create the constructor with two arguments, name and age, and inside we as well invoke parent constructor, but here we do it by name. So we invoke foo function and call it with context that we have, new created context and pass the only one argument, name. After that we deal with age. After we done with constructor, here we have a very important moment. We have to chain our prototype. To chain prototypes in JavaScript, there is special function create object create, which accept two arguments, at least one at least. So we here pass only one argument, and it will return empty object with defined magical property proto. So in other words, after we assign to bar prototype create object foo prototype, we will get the line that you see under in the comment. So bar prototype magic proto will reference to foo prototype. Okay, after that we can extend our new object prototype with required methods. So we add reference to constructor bar. We can create methods that we need, for example, age. And after that, we can use bar constructor, pretty the same as in JavaScript, as we looked at PHP or in the previous example of JavaScript. Okay. And if we inspect the instance of bar, we will see that instance is created by constructor bar. It has two open property age and name on the left side of it. It has magic property proto that is reference to object that is created by constructor foo. That object has two methods, constructor and get age. In its order, magic proto is referenced to the object that's created by object with methods constructor and get name. And finally, that object has proto property that is referenced to the basic object prototype. And on the right side of screen, you can see how our chain looks. So now we have to get to invoke has own property. Now we have to check 3 levels of three levels of prototypes. Okay, go further. JavaScript, same as PHP, has constructors that allow us to check if the instance is inherited from instance of some constructor. But it works a bit different. Here we don't check the class, but we check the prototype. So under the hood, the JavaScript interpreter will get prototype of, so it will get first level of bar period proto and check it with bar prototype. If it is the same object, it will return true, because that means that low bar is instance of constructor bar. Same will work with foo if we check if bar instance of foo. But now foo prototype will be found on the second level of proto chain. And same will work with if we check bar instance of object. Object prototype will be found on the third level of chain. But if we check bar instance of date, we will get false, because in the chain there is no date prototype. It is missing. We did not inherit functionality from a date prototype. There is other way to extend in JavaScript. There is no analog on PHP, so I cannot provide. So, for example, since in JavaScript it is all about objects, and prototype is also objects, and function constructor also object. And once we created an instance bar, and the prototype chain can be changed even after that we have an instance. For example, we create instance bar, create some constructor bus, and add the single only property into prototype is bus. And if we check bar instance of bus, we will get return false because bar is not instance of bus. There is no bus prototype in bar prototype chain. But we can change it. We can say that object set prototype of and full prototype bus prototype. That will that mean that we change inheritance of full prototype and change it, and now it will be inherited from bus prototype, not from object prototype. And bus prototype will, in its own turn, will inherit from object prototype. And if we after that check if bar instance of bus, JavaScript interpreter will say it's true, it's instance of bus. And now we can check, get access to the property of bus prototype. And we see that bar is bus will return true. Let's look to the exception to understand what have been changed once we inherit it from when we change the prototype chain. Bar instance is the object still created by bar with two own methods. Its proto is created by foo constructor with two methods, and now foo proto is created by bus constructor with two properties. And now bus proto is created by object with two properties, constructor and is bus property, and its turn proto is referenced to the object prototype. So now we have 4 level of prototype chain. On the right side of the screen, you can see that what was changed. So we have inserted one inheritance between foo and object. So, let's talk about it. Sorry, I will check if you have any questions on these topics. So there is no questions. I hope all is understood. Okay, if you have questions, you can type into GoToMeeting panel, and we will discuss questions after each section. Scope in JavaScript. Let's compare it again with PHP. So in PHP, it's by default it is local scope. Once we want to deal with global scope, we have intentionally use operator globe to say that variable A is used from global scope, and only after that we can get access to global scope. But in JavaScript, it's by default work with global scope. So here we have scope chain. Once we try to get access to the variable that is not defined in local scope, it will be automatically searched in parent scope. And if it is not found in parent scope, it will be searched in parent of parent scope. So to solve this problem, so in other words, we can just change some global values for the variable. To avoid such problem, we have to use inside of scope operator var that will declare that the variable is local. It is not will change global variable from global scope. And in example, you see that we for local variable b change the value, but after we execute the function, the value of global variable will be will still stay the same, but value for the variable a will be changed. So by default, it's work with global scope, and to work with local scope, we have to use inside of scope operator 1. Okay. In JavaScript, there is also such behavior as hosting. What does it mean? That means that JavaScript interpreter will work with code twice. First time we execute the function, interpreter will go through the code and look to definitions. So first, interpreter will look for var declaration and function declaration. And this declaration will be added to some hash table. So by name, we can get access to them. And after that, the code will be executed. So as an example, you see that we can try to get access to variable bar, and we will get undefined because variable exists, but value it does not have a value yet. But once we try to get reach to the variable bus that is not defined, we will get a reference error that bus is not defined. Pretty the same way it works with function, but function foo, for example, we can execute because it was declared over word reserved word function, and this function will be accessible even though it is declared below. But once we try to execute fourth function that is also declared below, but it's not. But this function is anonymous, and it is assigned to variable force. And at that moment that we try to execute force, force is variable with value undefined, so we cannot execute undefined. And we will get also an error, type error, that force is not a function, so we cannot execute it. But after definition at the end of the method, we can execute force because now variable force contains a reference to anonymous function, and we can execute it. As well as we can check the value of bar because now it is assigned with value of bar. Closure. Also, in JavaScript, let's go from PHP to pass into PHP into function into anonymous function in PHP. We have to use reserved word use, and after use we define what variables we want to use inside of function from parent scope. In JavaScript, we don't need to do that. New function will enclose a parent scope automatically. So on the left side of screen, you can see that we create some utility function make counter that will return a new function, a new counter that includes some variable that at the beginning it was equal 0. But once this function will be invoked, counter each time will be increased. And on the right side screen, you can see use of make counter. So we created two counters, first and second. And when we execute them nervously, we will see that each of that function has their own counter inside variable that will be increased each time when we invoke the function. This way, closure works. So when a function is created, it preserves reference to parent scope. The other good example, it's widely used for some for JavaScript interview and so on. So on the right side screen, we have a loop with 5 iterations. Inside the loop, we set up set timeout function and that function will output in a log the value of iteration. And it might be a bit unexpected, but after all, we will see in the console that we have on the right side of the screen. So all of those executions will output 5, despite that you might expect to see the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty logical because set timeout will execute the function after current process is done. So it will be executed in separate process. And once current process is done, I variable will contain value 5 because the loop is ended and last iteration was when I was not less than 5 and the loop was stopped. And since function created inside the loop will enclose a variable, it will preserve its initial, it will preserve its final value. So not value, it will be a reference to the same same part of memory where the value was stored. So it will be fine. To fix the issue, we have to use one more function, so-called self-invoked function or intermediate function. This function will allow us to create separate scope and separate value. Here you can see that we invoke inside a loop, inside cycle function, and path our index. Inside our intermediate function, it is a new argument, its index, and it preserved at the time that we have executed our intermediate function. So it was intermediate function was executed 5 times with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 4 without 5. 4 was last. And once set timeout will invoke our handler, it will output proper numbers. Okay, go further. Same immediate function or self-invoked function is widely used for module definition or for isolation. Let's say we want to create some functionality, and for that functionality we need numerous utility variables. If we would do it on a global scope, all of those variables will spoil global scope, will pollute global scope. And here comes immediate function. So we can put into arguments of that function all that we want to use inside of function. You see that we can change names inside of arguments. So we put jQuery, but inside we use sign of door. And at the end of the file, or end of the immediate function, we will return a result of our execution. For example, it can be some kind of module or so on. So this way we can provide some isolation for scope. Context. Okay, let's look if there are questions. Again, there is no questions. Let's go further. Okay. What is scope in JavaScript? As we talked before, inside a function we can manipulate with some pointer this. Let's create a function foo and see what this is. If we invoked just foo, we will see that this is referenced to some global object base window if we execute it in the browser. But if we invoke same function but with operator new, we will see that now this is pointer to some object that is created by foo and with some prototype. So there is main difference when we call just function and function with operator new. There is other way to define this reference. Let's look on the left side of screen where we define the object with property name and get name. And if we execute language get name, it will return JavaScript name because we have executed method get name in context of object language that is on the left side of period. So get name is executed in the context of language. And if we create other object, same language, but with other property name, and after that borrow method from a language to assign, and the same method will be executed for same language and will return another value because now get name is executed in the context of same language. And name has another value. So that means that the function that is referenced, that is deal with pointer with this, might be executed in numerous ways, and this might be referenced to different objects. Let's go further and look for another example. In JavaScript function prototype, so as we talked before, function is also object, and as object function has own prototype methods. In function prototype, there is some useful methods. One of them bind that allow us to bind some context to the function, and bind will return a new function. Which once will be executed will use the context that we specified at the bind level. So, an example, you see that we created the same language object without get name method, and after that we use long construction like language get name bind same language. So at this point, it does not matter that get name was taken from a language object. It's important that we not execute get name at this point of time, but call bind method of get name and pass the context that we use. That we want to use once a new function will be executed, and once we execute get same language name, we will get ECMAScript because get name function is binded with proper context. There are also two other ways to execute function, not bind but execute immediately. With different context. It's call and apply methods of prototype of function. So we can execute language get name, call same name, and get ECMAScript, and language get name apply same language and also get ECMAScript. At this point, they work the same, call and apply, but they are different in the way arguments are passed to them. Call accept arguments by argument after first argument, which is context. So second, third, etc. arguments will be passed into initial function getName. And apply accept maximum 2 arguments. First of them is context, and second, array of arguments that we want to pass inside of our initial function, which is in our case getName. Let's look how passing arguments works for call. So, for example, we have some function formatter that accept 2 arguments, prefix and suffix, and deal with some context and expect that context has property getName. The function will wrap these variables into array. After that, join them with spacer, and after that, trim leading or tailing space if it exists. And let's create some context like object language with name JavaScript. After that, we can execute our method formatter for a context and pass the arguments that we want. So we can pass 2 arguments and have phrase this is JavaScript 5.1, or pass only first argument and get only with prefix or some JavaScript, or skip first argument by passing the undefined value and have JavaScript 5 phrase format. Pretty the same, it works with apply, but here we wrap our arguments into array and pass them as second argument into apply function. So first argument is our context for execution, which is object with property getName. And second one is array of arguments that we want to use inside our function. About arguments, next topic, questions, still no questions. Okay. Arguments. Arguments, it's also magical variable which that is exist in each function, and values of that variable is the object that is created by constructor arguments. This constructor arguments is not accessible in JavaScript. It is hidden inside of JavaScript engine. So it is created automatically, and we cannot create our own instance of arguments. It has pretty the same structure as array, but it is not array. It is don't inherit properties, prototype of array. It is inherit only properties from constructor of arguments. Let's inspect what we have as arguments for the execution of full function. So we have enumerated items. We see that force with index 3 is an array, is an object created by constructor array, and it has 2 items, and our arguments has 4 items. Also, on arguments collection, we have method callee, which is referenced to function inside which it was created, so it's referenced to full function. It has property length, the same as we have in array functionality, so it always shows number of elements inside arguments. And it also has iterator that allow us to iterate over arguments by inside the cycle, etc. So that's it about structure of arguments. Let's talk about how we can deal with arguments. For example, we have functions that accept a long number of arguments. We can make it name it. We can make them name it, but it might be not so convenient. We can work with all arguments as it is over object arguments. For example, we can extract first and last argument over indexes from the collection and create a new collection weekdays. And it will contain only first and last item. In our case, it will Sunday and Saturday. And using method from prototype of array, slice method, we can extract path of elements from arguments and store it as items of array weekdays. So that long row arguments, prototype, slice, call, arguments, 1, -1, actually will do pretty the same if arguments would an array. So it pretty close to weekdays equal argument slice from first to one before last. It's pretty the same, but we cannot do that because arguments does not inherit prototype of array. But we can borrow a method from array and reuse it for our purpose. And after that, here is a small trick how we can convert arguments into usual array. So we can still borrow method slice from array prototype and call arguments without extra arguments, which is specify how much of slice we want to do. So actually, it will convert whole arguments object into array. So our week will contain all elements. Okay, hope that understood. Spread operator. In JavaScript, in ECMAScript 6, we have a special operator that allows us to pass unknown number of arguments. We have 3 periods, and after that we can type name of a variable, and it will pass each variables separately, each item separately, as for example in column method. But in JavaScript 5 we don't have such functionality, such operator, but we can do it in other way. For example, let's take for example we have an array with 4 elements, with a known number of elements, and our goal is to make this array twice longer. So we have to push each element to the array one more time to get that array twice longer. We can use cycle, and inside of cycle we can push each item separately one by one. This code works, it's okay, it's fine, but we know the trick that allows us to push all elements at once. So push can push all elements one by one, not only one element. So we can specify endless, endless number of arguments. And here how we can do it. So items push and not push, we execute for push directly, but over apply method where we with first argument specify our target, our context, where we want to push elements, and second argument to apply is arguments that we want to pass into push. So the line items push apply items will execute pretty the same that is on a comment above, that, where we items push first item, second items, third item, etc. So here how we can use spread arguments in JavaScript 5. And we are close to our topic, promises. Let's look if there are questions. I don't see questions. Okay, promises. In JavaScript, there is a lot of time we deal with asynchronous processes. And for dealing with asynchronous processes, we can use publish subscribe pattern and handle events and so on, so on, so on. But JavaScript provides a bit different, other way to deal with actions. So it's called promises. Promise it's an object that provide way to handle asynchronous action and handle successful result or failed result. In JavaScript, specification, we have constructor promises, which creates a new object of promise, and that constructor accepts only one argument, its executor function, and once this executor function will be executed, it will get two handlers, two callbacks, which we obligated to invoke once our process is done or failed. And this way we can notify all members who get the promise object whether our process is done or failed. So outside our code, some other code will subscribe to our promises over a then method or catch method and handle successful or failed result. Let's look at an example to explain it a bit more. So let's create some promise object and fulfill our executor function. And inside that execution function, we will emulate asynchronous process with the help of setTimeout function. And inside of setTimeout function, we will invoke some function, do something that is meant to be, I think, asynchronous. And depend on the result of that function. If it's crashed, we will invoke method reject of that was provided into our executor. Or if it worked fine, we will execute resolve method with result that we get from our do something function. In another part of application, we can handle these actions once we provide to the promise two methods that are aimed to handle success result or error result. So once we add to promise, we will see what the result was. So is it job done or the error was occurred? Since promises are widely used and widely is highly convenient for asynchronous processes to deal with them, but not supported well by all browsers. There is many other implementation pretty close to promises that is specified by JavaScript and ECMAScript. And one of them is Deferred. Deferred object of jQuery. So it's pretty the same. We can create the deferred object, from deferred object we can take promise and give it out from our code to someone to deal with the result, and execute our business logic where after that we can invoke either resolve or reject with specific result. The same example that we did before will look pretty the same, but there is no executor method. Reject and resolve are stored inside the deferred object, and we do pretty the same. I think that's it. Do you have any questions? I don't see questions. I hope it was interesting and useful. Thank everyone for attending the meeting. If you have any question, but very shy to ask it on a webinar, you can reach me on the Skype or email and ask questions related to the presentation. Thank you, and see you next time on the further coming webinars. Bye.